because and also I wish to start saying that the information is the people's power and the people's strength. With the information we can do lot, not only the election observations or election circle, but as many of our colleagues mentioned, there are a lot of areas where we can strategically use the RTI. RTI will help us to access the information. So that is how we can use it for benefit of the people. So I will explain how we can use for the RTI for the election purpose, or rather elections observations, or rather safeguard of the democracy of the people. In Sri Lanka, we have various experience within last couple of years. The mostly, I think, I mean, I know that not only the Sri Lanka, there are many other countries which they are using the RTI in a different ways to safeguard the democracy on their countries. But in Sri Lankan experience, and I do have little experience in South Asian regions, we have used the RTI to collect the informations of the candidate during the elections period, and also even after the elections, to get the information about the elected representative. For example, we are getting asset declarations, maybe their business, they may be their the education's background before the prior to the elections, because if you know the candidate properly, so you will be able to get a better judgment before you vote for any of the parties or any of the candidates. So of course we have used it in Sri Lankan contest in the last couple of elections, and also we can use this to control the corruptions as well in a different ways. That also in between the elections, during elections, and even after the elections, we can use it. But I will come back to that point, because I have a good example, landmark judgment in Sri Lanka recently. So I will add on, I will explain on little bit. But before that, I wish to mention that we are using Right to Information Act for control the misuse of the government resources and the government power. You know, in Sri Lanka, I mean, like in other Asian countries, the government people, the government, whoever power in the during the elections period, because I mean, like in Thailand, I think most of you know that in some time back we had a caretaker government in Thailand, but in Sri Lankan contest and many other countries now, whenever we have one elections, some political authorities are in power. When it's come to Sri Lanka, when we have a parliamentary elections, president is there with the power, and the provincial councillors and the local authorities, they are in the power. So anyway, they use the government resources and the power in many ways. So we have been using this RTI for control that. To especially they are using the government vehicles, the government buildings, the humans, and sometimes the development program also. So we can use this RTI as a tool to get the information whether this vehicle, because you know sometimes the government missionary, they hire a vehicle, then you can't identify the vehicle they hired, they paid from the government, I mean the public money, and they use for the election propaganda. Sometimes the government vehicle itself they use for their propaganda, especially the ministers, those who are in the power. So we in the past election we have used this RTI to know whether this vehicle is really belong to the government or any other candidate or any other public persons, and sometimes the government building also, the development program also. So even when we simply ask that information from the relevant ministry or relevant authority, that will automatically control the situations. They may not use it because they generally they get the signal that somebody is monitoring and somebody is looking on their actions or misusing the government resources. So that is mostly the last parliamentary and presidential elections we have done it. When it's come to the corruptions, of course, the asset, the declarations, we have largely used this RTI. I mean, in Sri Lankan contest, now the candidate has to submit their asset and liabilities within 3 months period. But some elections, the elections commissions pressurize the political parties to submit their asset and liabilities with the nominations. But 100% it was not practiced. But within the 3 months period, they have to submit their asset and liabilities informations. So we have used the RTI to get those information and publicize some of these politicians, those who have not submit the document. I think Ms. Krisali Frinto has already mentioned about the Prime Minister in Sri Lanka. In the initial stage, this TISL Sri Lanka has requested that. But the recent judgment, I am happy to elaborate a little bit. That is one of the success of RTI. In the last, it's a good example that strategically how we use the RTI as a tool. The last local elections, we have received number of complaints regarding the bribing the voters. In most of the elections, we are getting these informations, but it's very difficult to prove that whether the candidate is directly bribing the voters. But fortunately, the last local government elections, we got the information in one of the rural district in Sri Lanka. The candidate is directly bribing the voters. What he has done was that he has given the electricity connections and the water connections. So he paid himself, and some occasion he has hired his colleagues to pay that connections to the government authority. So when we get this information, we inform the Elections Commission, and we saw that we realized that there is a government authorities are involved in this process. So we thought and we decided to submit the RTI applications to those two the authorities, Water Board and the Electricity Board, and we got the information that this person during the election period, this candidate has. We had to prove that during the time frame, as well as the person who paid for these connections. So it took 3.5 years, but the last week we got the judgment, and really we were success that we were managed to prove that this person, this candidate utilized the money and he himself paid these people during the election period. Actually, the one family, it roughly about 150 to 200 US$ in Sri Lankan rupees, 30 to 40,000, or some cases beyond that. So this is, this is very rural area. The family, they were suffering with water, and they were suffering with the electricity. So if anyone is managed to support on that, so definitely the entire family will vote for them. So fortunately, we through RTI we got all the informations, and we were success in that case. So I think this is the significant achievement of RTI in Sri Lanka. I don't know whether this kind of achievement using RTI related to elections in any other regions, in our regions, in a similar occasion. So this will use for the other countries as well, wherever this bribing take place. But I'm not sure whether all this bribing can take into the consideration with the RTI, because I know some other countries, there are direct vote buying, but it's very difficult to capture all those things. But this is really landmark judgment, And we can now, in the coming elections, we can use this. We can use this even the parliamentary elections. If someone bribed the voters, if we can prove that, so we can disqualify even after he gets elected. So this is the historic judgment, historic achievement of RTI, which I wanted to share with you. I think in a regional, the other countries, I have looked at with my experience, and I have research on certain the document. There are various other countries use this RTI in a different ways, but mainly try to get the asset and liability informations and their campaign expenditure and the sponsors of their campaign funding. So basically, the other regions also like Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Nepal. So various our regional countries, they use this RTI for elections activities. And I have noticed that Nepal, they have considered the political party as a public body. So that means all these information has to declare to the public. But I heard that Ms. Trishali was mentioned about Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, so far we have not in that, it has not included in Sri Lanka the RTI law. But then again, I'm happy to share with you all with the judgment. Now, Sri Lanka has appointed the Parliamentary Select Committee for electoral reforms. So this judgment will remind us again to come up with campaign finance regulations. So we don't have a campaign finance regulation, which is very important in elections. Even if we change the electoral system, if we can't bring the campaign finance ceiling, so that will not effect for the changes. So that is what happened in Monragal. I mean, this the case. The person who was supposed to utilize his money for the bigger local authority area, they use, with the new electoral system, they use it for a small geography. So that is how he managed to bribe the voters. So